Good evening and welcome to Wavelength. I'm your host, Ian Butler, and tonight's guest is Alp Sendil. He's a local man who is trying to save the Vallemar palms from being removed, which PG&E believes need to be removed because they think that they're going to be a fire hazard soon, and they seem to think that's the only solution to that problem. Anyhow, Alp, welcome to Wavelength.
Thanks, Ian.
All right. Now I'm a professional tree trimmer, and I know that whenever you want to cut down a tree, even if there's a real good, compelling reason to, there's always going to be some people that have an emotional attachment and they don't want it cut down.
Sure.
Can you explain why you feel that these trees are really worth the fight to save?
Sure. Well, the Canary Island palms are beautiful, majestic trees, and these particular trees have been there for about a century. Some of them are slightly over a century old. The neighborhood was established by a developer named George Rich. He was trying to take advantage of the old Ocean Shore Railroad. It was right after the 1906 quake. And to develop the land, he had trees imported from all over. He actually worked with John McLaren, who he was friends with John McLaren, who set up Golden Gate Park, and friends with John Muir. And McLaren actually helped Rich select some of these trees. The Canary Island palms were actually shipped up from Los Angeles. In fact, there's a newspaper article I read from about 20 years ago where the woman on Bonita was saying she still had the way bill for these trees, which is pretty cool.
Really?
So there's actually about a dozen trees that are threatened. They're all the ones on the north side of Reina Del Mar.
Where the wires are.
Where the wires are. So all the ones on the south side are fine. And PG&E doesn't want to remove all of them, although ultimately all 12 on that side are potentially going to need to be removed. I think it was a few months ago that PG&E requested to remove 3 of the trees, and it went before the PB&R Commission. The Heritage Tree Ordinance says that you have to fill out the form and all that stuff. And somebody told somebody who told me, and I thought, wait a minute, that's in front of my house. What's going on?
That's the one right in your
house. One of them happens to be in front of my house.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 are pretty close to the front of the valley. And so yeah, we started asking, why are you removing them? And there are legitimate reasons for concern. There's an electrocution hazard as well as a potential fire hazard because the tree.
And the way that here's my tree trimmer in me now.
Yeah.
Palm trees, the growing tip is where all the growth happens from the top, so you cannot top them down.
That's right.
If you cut that off, you have a dead tree now.
Exactly.
So there's an absolute, you just have to.
Right. And so PG&E as a utility company is exempt from all the sort of tree trimming laws that it would affect any other private citizen or public company. So their position is, well, we could trim the tree until it dies, and then you guys have to remove it, or we could remove it for you, and we'll put in a nice little $300 tree to replace it. Now, I should probably jump to the fact that today they've, because we've been negotiating / arguing, they've offered to withdraw their application. They're putting together a committee, and we're going to talk to PG&E, and so we're making progress. So,
so it's a different place now than what it was looking like earlier, huh?
Yeah, I mean, 2 months ago it was a very different story, but PG&E is actually, a lot of the people that we've worked with have been really cooperative. Their folks in vegetation management have been really cool. They came out there, Joel Smith, who's their arborist or forester, came out on a Saturday, and we looked at every single tree, and he pointed out that actually this one actually has more time. This one's actually at risk, and so we went tree by tree. And basically they decided they could do some strategic trimming and bought us about 6 months to do some negotiations to find a short and long-term solutions. So,
so there's some hope here.
Yeah, it's looking
That's
okay.
Good. Well, let's go back a little bit. We were talking about the importance of those trees. You were saying that that they're 100 years old.
Yeah, so George Rich basically bought the tract in 1906 in the hopes of developing it and taking advantage of the big real estate boom. He'd spent some time in Los Angeles and he'd seen the sort of urban sprawl there. They didn't call it that, obviously. But with the railroad going down the coast, they thought, wow, we could totally develop this land and sell it. In fact, there are some advertisements you can get at the public library that show Vallemar tracts selling for $5 a lot. So.
Wow. So, okay, right next to the train station, they got the nice little row of palm trees. Well, we have a shot here of, well, why don't you tell us what this picture is we're looking at?
This picture is of the Rich family, I believe. I got it from, the description's on the back, so I'm going to have to go from memory here. But it's on the corner of Bonita and Reina Del Mar, and it's in the 20s. In the
20s. How do you know the year of that?
Well, I got the photo from Claudia Rourke, who is a relative of Liz Thoride, who was granddaughter of Marion Thoride, who is the granddaughter of George Rich. So,
so
a lot of names, but basically it came from the Rich family.
So. All right, so anyhow, that's from the 20s, and the trees you can see are already at least 10 years old, probably 15, 20 years old.
Yeah, we actually have a few other photos. They're not, like you saw them earlier, they're small and they're not in great shape, but the pictures from the 1910s and 15s.
Yeah, I had seen those others as well. Okay, so, because when I heard they were 100 years old, I was kind of skeptical of that. It seemed like, yeah, right, 100 years old. But seeing these pictures, it seems like that is true. And I know Canary Island palms can live to be, what, 300 years old?
That's what I've read. So, yeah. And part of the reason that these trees are so expensive, I mean, they look nice, but they also last a long time, and they're slow growing. So it takes a significant construction effort to, locate one at your house, or you have to have some foresight and plan it there 100 years ago. So so they go for a lot of money.
Right, that's true. I know that the ones at Packville Park, they put those in, and it was like $100,000 per tree or something ridiculous.
No,
like
I think I think it was like 20,000. But I mean, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So so if we're going to lose a dozen trees at $25,000 a tree, that's $250,000.
Yeah, that's some real money there.
Yeah.
All right, and so the neighborhood has now been kind of banding together, working to save these. I know you had an event that you did.
Yeah, we did a couple different events. And I got to say, the neighborhood is pretty amazing. People just came together. We have one friend who works at a printing company who offered to print flyers. I have another friend who's a graphic designer who put together a design for the flyer that we could do. There's several people who work in PR that got us in touch with the local media. And so one person, Cheryl Sinclair, had this idea that, hey, why don't we take do an event on Palm Sunday back in March and try to save the palms on Palm Sunday. So we work with a local nonprofit called Kids for Change, and they try to do things to make the world a better place, and they're kids from the age of 5 to 8 or 10, something like that. And so they've been doing several different projects, and so I think one of them in his second grade class had gotten together with his classmates and come up with solutions. And so they read some of those solutions, and so we caught that on film. And another young boy, Ellis Manning Villar, who's I think he's 10 or 11.
I saw that footage, and in fact we have a tape of this which I'd like to show.
Sure. Yeah, he wrote a letter to Peter Darby, the CEO of PG&E, and said, and it's an incredibly well-written letter. And I talked to his mom, and she said, I didn't encourage it. I mean, it's great, but I didn't tell him to do it. It's all his idea. Yeah, so it's pretty.
Well, that kid's definitely a smart cookie. Why don't we roll that tape? It's I'd like to point the readers out, the viewers out, also that one of the first scenes shows like a diorama of Vallemar Station and the train and the palm trees. That's at Vallemar Station. You can see that diorama in there, and you can see the palms. They put these awesome little palms in there, recreating them, because they really are a part of the history of that neighborhood. So.